All right, guys, welcome back to Money Talks, the podcast where we talk about money, fitness, and lifestyle. I'm trying out that new intro, so just bear with me. If it needs to change, it needs to change. But those are the three topics that I want to talk about on this podcast. So I figured I'd just let you guys know in the beginning. And that way, if you don't like any of those things, then you can get the heck out of here. But if you like those things, then you can stick around. You know what I'm saying? Hey, listen, today we're talking about a really important topic. It comes up in the personal finance space all the time. It's like one of the pillars. But also, it's really important when it comes to business. And so, this topic is really important for pretty much anybody who's trying to better their lives financially. We're talking about debt. And a lot of people are going to think, oh, this guy's just going to say all debt is bad and it's the worst thing ever and you should just get rid of all of it. And that's like 90% true. But the other 10% isn't. So stick around to figure out what the other 10% is. All right. So here's the deal. First of all, I want to let you guys know that obviously I have my iPad right here. I'm going to be looking at it frequently because I have all my notes right here on what the topic is of the day. And the reason why I do that is because I'll go off on a tangent. And if I forget what we're talking about, you won't hear the end of it. And I'll go off and start talking about something else. And then you'll never hear the end of it. So you'll leave the video, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. So I got my notes right here. So don't get mad at me. I'm gonna look over here, might read a couple of things, and then come back to what I was saying. So without further ado, let's talk about debt. I think it's a really important topic to get into early in your personal finance journey and learn about debt, how it works, why it's bad to keep especially higher interest debt around. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So, first thing I want to say about debt is you should have a good understanding of how it works. A lot of people don't know what interest is. So, I'm going to explain it. Check it out. So, interest is like the money you're paying for borrowing that money. So if I gave you $100 on Tuesday because you needed some money on Tuesday and you don't get paid until Friday, I'm going to say, all right, you can have the money on Tuesday and you got to pay me back next month $110. So now you're down $10 from the original money that you were borrowing. And that's called interest. You're paying me that extra $10, right? Because I let you borrow the 100 in advance. And that's how interest works, right? So you got your debt payments, and part of that debt payment every month while you're paying that money back is going to be interest. And that's the extra money you're paying for having borrowed that money. Just to clear that up, I know it's simple, I know it's basic. Yo, if you know a bunch about finance or even base level finances, just bear with me, dude. A lot of people don't even understand that concept. So it's really important you don't think that, hey, I'm going to borrow this money and then I'm going to pay back exactly the amount that I borrowed. You're going to pay back more. So you're basically telling, when you take out some debt, you're basically telling somebody, hey, I'm going to pay you in advance this much for letting me borrow the money now. You're committing your future income to that person or that entity. And that's like the biggest reason why I don't like keeping a bunch of debt. And definitely not keeping high interest debt. The higher the interest, the worse off. So I think high interest debt slows the ability to build wealth. Now, you may think, is there a way to use debt smartly? Yes, there is. Let me explain. So, when it comes to debt, you have what a lot of people call good debt and bad debt. What they typically mean when they're saying that is good debt is debt that makes you money, and bad debt is debt that takes money away from you. The difference is what you're using the money for that you're borrowing. So, for instance, if I'm borrowing money because I was negligent with the money that I got in that month and I wasn't able to pay rent, or I wasn't able to pay any other bills that I had to pay, or I'm taking out debt to go on a vacation or buy a nice watch or buy a sweet car, and more car than I even need for my daily life, then hey, that's bad debt, because that debt is going to cost me so much more, and it's not going to make me any money. It's just going to drain my bank account. That's all it's doing. On the flip side, good debt, or what could be considered good debt, is if I borrow some money and I take that money and I go put it into some type of vehicle that can make me more money. So if I take a lump sum of debt money and I put it into a property, a real estate property, that could be a form of good debt. If I put it into growing a business, that could be good debt. Buying a business could be good debt, right? So that's the difference. Good debt versus bad debt. That's what they're talking about. In my opinion, the only way a debt could be considered a good one is if there is a proven track record of whatever you're putting that money into to return you money that's higher than the percentage that you're paying in interest for that debt. So, for instance, the stock market pays out on average between, really inflation adjusted, around 7-8%, right? You put any money into the market, into an index tracking fund, tracks the S&P 500, that's going to get you 7 or 8%. If you were to take a loan out for 10%, and you're paying 10% interest on that loan, and then you go invest that money into the stock market thinking you're going to get a ton of money off of it, your money is going to grow in the stock market, but you're paying out more for the loan. So that doesn't make sense. So even though you're putting it into an investment vehicle, it's still not good debt. It's still bad debt, because the interest rate is higher than the return you're getting on the money. I hope that makes sense. So, good question to start with is, if you have debt, why should you get rid of it? A lot of it goes into what I was just saying, right? The interest makes everything more expensive. So, yes, you can get a return in a lot of different investment vehicles, but nothing's guaranteed. And you have to factor in the risk that you're taking along with whatever return you think you're going to get. I hope I'm not getting too much into the weeds. Essentially, if you're not going to make a higher amount of money on the money you're spending, then don't do it. Like I said, you're committing your future payments or your future income to that person. So really, if you have debt of any kind, what you're saying is, okay, I don't get paid whatever my salary is. Whatever my paycheck is, I'm not getting paid that much. I'm getting paid that much minus whatever debt I have. So you're already down. As soon as you get money, you're already down. You already owe. Psychologically, if nothing else, that sucks. So, high interest debt, bad debt, slows financial progress, slows wealth building. So, not a fan. So, how do we get rid of it? You need to, just like anything else that we talk about here, I like systems. So, when it comes to paying off debt, all I look at it as is that problem just requires a system. So you need a payoff plan. It's pretty simple to put together a payoff plan. It looks like this. You take, first of all, you need to track everything. We already talked about that in the prior episode. So you look at all your debts and you say, hey, this is my debt from smallest to largest. And this is my debt from smallest to largest interest rate. So you're looking at total amounts and you're lining them up, and then you're looking at the interest rates and you're lining them up. And you can pick one of two ways to pay this off fairly efficiently. You got two main ways. You got the avalanche method, which is essentially you're taking the debt with the highest interest rate, meaning you're losing the most money on that debt, and you start paying off that debt first. The way how you pay it off is pretty simple. You pay your minimums on everything because you have to, and then any extra money that you have every month, you just put towards that first debt with the highest interest rate. And then once you get that one out of the way, then you move on to the next one with the next highest interest rate, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. It's called the avalanche method. That one makes the most sense on paper. As far as getting the highest return on investment, that one's going to get you to the best place in the best way financially. Now, you could also do the snowball method. This was made popular by Dave Ramsey. That's where you take the lowest dollar amount debt, no matter the interest rate, and you pay that off first. Then you move to the next smallest dollar amount debt. And you keep going and keep going. And that's called the snowball method. It's because it's small and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you just do the same thing. Minimums on everything. And then the most money, or all the money that you have left over, you put all towards that smallest debt. The idea behind that is if you have, let's say, a $100 debt, a $1,000 debt, and a $10,000 debt, it's going to take you a long time compared to the 1,000 or the 100 to pay off the 10,000. That's going to take you way longer, right? So the idea is psychologically, if you can pay off that $100 debt the fastest, you get that psychological win. So you kind of like have some mile markers where you can see your progress quicker. So if you're somebody who struggles with delaying gratification, or you're somebody who struggles with like the monotony of paying off debt or like achieving a long-term goal, then the snowball method might actually work better for you. Because in the end, you may actually continue with that method, and you may actually continue on the path towards getting that debt paid off, versus if you did it the avalanche way, you might just lose motivation or whatever, or lose discipline, and then not even do it at all. So, I mean, if you're going to finish it, that might be the best way to go. So you have those two different methods. One super important thing that I'll mention is no matter how you're paying off the debt, if you start adding more debt onto your original number, it's like a cyclical situation that you're going to put yourself in, where you're just continuing to add flame to the fire. Wood to the fire, gas to the fire, something like that. You're just adding to the problem, and that problem will compound more and more. So, the most important thing about paying off debt and the most important thing about changing your financial system, about changing the way that you look at money, literally the most important thing is there needs to be a behavioral change. You can't just continue the same behaviors, thinking the same way, and then achieve different results. You're just going to get the same results. So if I don't change my habits, I'm still spending more than I need to on things that I don't need or things that I can't necessarily afford. Well, that behavior is going to just put you back in the same position. So I've seen it a bunch where people utilize things like a consolidation on their debt or some type of forgiveness or a balance transfer from one credit card to another with 0% APR their first year or something along those lines. I've seen all the promotions happen where people take advantage of whatever these things that are available to them to get them right back into debt. So for instance, someone may pay off all their debt and then see that their balance on their credit card is available again. And so they think that they have that money available to them, so they spend it. Meaning like your ability to use the credit card or whatever it is, right? That debt is now available to you again, so you go right back towards what you did before. Because you haven't broken the cycle. You haven't changed anything. So don't end up back where you started, is my point. Don't go back. Go forward. Just continue to go forward. Never go back. Don't look back there. Okay. So what should you do once you pay off all the debt? And we've gone through kind of a progression here, right? This was my end goal with this video today is we kind of saw, okay, what is debt? Why should we pay it off? Especially the high interest stuff. We definitely need to pay that off. What method can we use? We can use the avalanche or the snowball. And then we just make sure that we're changing our behavior so we don't go back to the way we were acting before that got us into this debt. Now, once you get rid of the debt, it's really important that you don't think, okay, now I can spend way more money because I have all this money freed up that I was paying towards debt payments. Really important you don't have that mindset. What you need to be thinking is, okay, now I have all this money that I was paying towards dumb debt that I didn't need. Now I have all that money to invest. Now I have all this money to save up an emergency fund, invest, and build a solid financial foundation. That's what I want you to be thinking. If I had one want for you moving forward, if I wanted one thing for you, it would be to think like that. Any amount of debt that you pay off, all that money is now going towards saving and investing, and now it's going towards your future financial foundation. And eventually, hopefully, financial freedom, which we'll do an episode on pretty soon because I know that means something different to just about everybody. So, getting out of debt is not about what you owe. It's more about taking back control of your future income. And that's the way I look at it. Let me know down in the comments what you think about debt. Do you think that debt has its place? Is there actually good debt? Do you have debt? How much debt you got to pay off? I want to know all those things. Let me know. And in the next video, we're going to be talking about credit and why it's important, why it might not be, when it might not be, or when it will be. And I think that's going to be a good episode as well. So meet me back here at the Money Talks podcast. But for today, we're all done. All right, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Like, comment, subscribe. Holla back at your boy. I'm out.